As an academic, I often there's a couple of things that I have to repeat in my mind a lot. Um, the first one being, it's not my problem. I know that sounds really crude, but it's a really important thing. I'm going to explain what it is. And then the second thing is you can't make people like you. Um, I really seek a lot of validation. I think that this is like completely normal, not in the sense of like validation that I need constant praise and all that kind of stuff. I just want people to like me, right? Um, and that's where I often have to take a step back and I have to realize there's nothing I can do to change how people feel about me. And if I am an honest, well intentioned person, and I do my best, I cannot control how other people interact with me. Right? I think that is a really, really healthy way, and it's taken me years to reconcile this or come, to deal with this is realize that, yeah, you know what? Um, there's nothing that I can do to make people like me or see my view or, any of those kind of things. I'm an extraordinarily agreeable person, um, in the sense that if somebody said something that was even remotely negative about me, I would, I'd crumble, right? Like I've worked on this for a long time. And one of the ways that I deal with this is realizing I can't make people like me, right? And so that means taking a step back and saying, "Yep, I'll do my best." Um, but on the flip side, that doesn't mean I have to be an ass, right? That doesn't mean I can't be well intentioned. But if I offer help and nothing happens on the other side, it's not my fault. I get bitter. I get a little, more than grumpy, I guess. But this is where the other side comes in, is it's not my problem, right? Where I have to take a step back and say, you know what? It's not my problem with what happens to other people or what happens um, if somebody doesn't, heed my advice or think about the same way that I do. Um, I happen to know that I know this sounds so pretentious, but I do know a few things. I'll go with that modesty. I do know a few things. My wife and I, um, are doing modestly well. I'll just leave it at that. Um, and I've been modestly successful, right? Like I just want to, I don't want to sort of think about this too much. But what I want to do is to come back to the basic message of all of this by simply just saying, it's not my problem. I can't make other people like me. If I live my life in a very well intentioned and I try to be as just good-hearted, sweet person as possible, but then say F you to the world or screw you to the world, it's this real mix of dealing with just the harsh reality, right? So I don't want to be that person that becomes just super grumpy and miserable for the rest of my life. It's very easy to be if you are a very agreeable, kind of well-intentioned person, and the hard reality of the world hits you. Right? Most things that you do and most interactions that you have are going to be. It's not going to be, as I've said many times before. It's not. It's not a positive reaction. It's very few times a negative reaction, but it's just going to be like nothing. Nobody cares, right? And when you have that, it hurts, right? If you get that non-response and nobody cares, it really does hurt. Um, but that's where I have to remind myself it's not my problem. I could do everything I possibly can do, and they are not going to like me anyways, right? There's just, if you take that into consideration, that for whatever reason, and there's no reason, often no reason that you can control, it's many things out of your control, that some people are just not going to have a preference for you, no matter how sweet you are or well intentioned you are, all those kind of things that you think about. Um, you have to just simply accept the world as it is. And so a lot of this is boundary management, right? Of um, sufficiently creating boundaries and separating yourself from a world that you really, really want to help. And I think it's an extraordinarily important thing for all of us, particularly, in cultures that we may not agree with, to have this very healthy separation from the external world. Right? I think it's important for all of us to do this, in all professions to do this. Like if you were a medical doctor, for example, and you internalized all the things um, that happened to you, or maybe you were somebody that worked in a prison and you internalized all the bad things that happened to you, and it would hurt. But you learn to deal with this harsh reality over time. And I want you to think about that in all of your professions that you're going through, is thinking about how can you separate yourself from a harsh reality and protect your little tiny space that's you, right? And it might be just you, and that's totally fine. It might even be like your alter ego in your head as well. That little voice in your head might be kind of nasty as well. Well, you distance from that person too, right? And so you create this nice little space where you are doing fine, and then you protect that little space. And you try to create a nice little space, and you pick that little group that you want to be in your vicinity, and hopefully it's a bunch of well-intentioned, nice people. But it's not always that case. Um, but it's a nice little group, and you protect that group, and you create a nice little boundary from that. And if in that little space, and maybe it's just you, that you like each other and it's a well-intentioned thing, that's fantastic. That's all that matters. By creating a healthy space between you and reality in the external world and saying, you know what, it doesn't matter what they think about me. Um, it's okay. I'm okay. I am healthy. My little tiny, tiny, tiny space is healthy. That's the only thing that matters. And the rest of it, it has no impact what you do, no matter how much you want to please, no matter what you want to do, all of those things, it doesn't matter. And as long as you have this little cubby space and you keep this nice little separation, you're doing fine. And I think that's all you have to do in a world that is often harsh, that is often judging you, and a world that you often want to really impress and really, really want to have an impact. But as long as you have this little cubby space where it's just you and maybe a few friends or your spouse and your siblings or whatever, a little tiny tiny cubby space, that's all that matters. And that's it. And the rest of it is you abide by, um, you can't make people like you, and you abide by, it's not my problem. You'll have a healthy and wonderful life. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye. Bye.